Hello, how's everybody doing? This is Dance Without Music again. Um, we have so many developments. So today we're going to talk about. It's funny because if this, if they keep YouTube on and for 10 years or 5 more years, it would be so interesting to see how the future people handle these videos of dance about music, because I know they're good and I know it's a lot of research and a lot of working, but that's so interesting to me. Like, I could be talking to somebody who's not born yet, or I could be talking to someone. It's just really neat. So I mean, it could be like in the year 2025 and dance out music is alive, and everybody's interested in it. So that's just something that's really interesting to think about. But anyway, now I'm going to break down the radicals. What's another thing? We're going to go in the land of no numbers, and we're going to do the thriller dance, continually do that one. We don't have to worry about the thriller dance because it's going to be perfect. Excuse me. And it's like we're sewing the thriller dance together. Okay. So I hope everything works. I'm just thinking about something because I got a call, an important call, and I'm thinking about it. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I got to do this video because you're here when I'm in my life. So, I mean, like, but I have to cut it off sometime because I know this is very important. So now we're talking about the radicals, okay? Hope you follow through with the radicals. But we're going to break down the radicals. And how are we going to break down the radicals? Because I told you that we're in the function now. And the function, it makes up all of these equations and everything. And you can see how things are put together and how things are broken apart, okay? And it's like in algebra, some things you have to do with the function, you just got to calculate it and then put it on the paper, and somehow you do it. You can see it, but you can't really figure out how you did it. But only we're going to figure out how we did it. So, remember when I told you we were always talking about the squares? And of course we were talking about the squares because we were conceptually thinking about the squares when we did like the radical 9, radical 4, because we've always seen squares, especially when we're in algebra and we talk about the radicals, and they always have the example of the squares, physical squares. But remember when I told you that now we're in the function, okay? And the function is in what I call this space, the heaven, okay? They're all terms that we had to come up with. And I picked out heaven because it's, it's like everything that we do, we see. I mean, it's the most important because we see, we hear, we smell, and everything comes together there. So I just figured out to call it heaven. I was going to say you can call it home, but I mean, for people who don't want to use heaven, I wouldn't say home. I would say something like the castle. So if you don't want to use heaven, you could say castle or mansion or something like that. But I don't see any problem because in just saying, heaven for here, for this, from the story to the top, okay? I forgot what we called this. Just from the top up here, I don't know what we called it, but I know this right up here, anything up here is the roof, I called it. So anyway, so what's happening to the radicals? Well, the first thing is in the function so far, because it's still calculating, just to show you how things work when you get to this stage. When I was in the function, of course I don't stay in the function and just like watch it calculate or whatever, because it does calculate. You have to learn how to leave it alone, okay? And I knew, like, it was breaking down radicals, and I tried to, concentrate on what it was breaking down, but just let it go. Let it process. When something's processing in yourself, you have to let it go, let it process, and then work from there. So it's still progressing, but I've come up with some I just had the word, with some things that's already occurred that I'm for sure has occurred. Some I had another word for it, but it's best for me to break down the words. So we're getting rid of the lines. We're getting rid of the walls or the lines that connect the squares inside the radicals. So, like, if it's radical 4, it's just points. So we broke the walls down. There's no more lines. I mean, there could be lines if we want to go back there, because we'll need to go back there at some point in time, because that's a place a place of intelligence. But now we're finding new intelligence. Not to say that other intelligence is bad. No, because it's a place. But now we're going somewhere else. You ever hear somebody say, "Don't go there"? Well, we're going somewhere else. So we're taking the lines away. And what do we have? The only thing, because it was so intense now, just the thought of it, because I was thinking about it, I said, whoa, I mean, but everything's going to work out, because I'm going to explain to you how this thing works. So I went to a radical 1, because I couldn't deal with being inside of a radical 9 with just dots, or radical 25 definitely with just dots, or radical 4, that was even too much with just dots. So I went to a radical 1, and I saw that there was just 4 dots. And what are the 4 dots? The 4 dots are very important, because without the 4 dots you don't have a square. So the 4 dots create the square. Dots can create more than just the square. They can create other shapes, but we're talking about the square. So the distance, what makes it a square, which the first one is, it has to have points, 4 points. The next one is that the space, I don't want to say distance. When you say distance, that means that you're talking about one point to the other, but we're not going to do that. We're going to make it more vague, which is more secure. Vague is not vague. You'll see that vague is not vague. It's just vague. Okay? So, so it's not the distance between the points, but it has the same space between the points. So if it has equal spaces between 4 points, it's a square. Okay, so we got that down. So we got rid of the sides. Okay, but like I said, you can still go there, especially like when we do the dance and everything, because everything is flat on the floor. But let's just keep going with this thing. Okay. Okay, now, so there's only 4 points. Okay. The reason why I couldn't go into a radical 4 is because I noticed when I started seeing points, it was like, well, you know, you have this point in this space, and then I go to another space, and the space that I was in uses the same points that the space that I went to. So if I'm in this space, okay, listen. 4 has this, and this, because we don't use numbers. But, you know, I haven't used numbers for communication. So I'm here, and I'm in this space, and I'm in a radical 4, and I know about the 4 points, but when I move to another space, and I break down, because I'm trying to break down the meaning of the radical, and there's 4 points, but only something goes into play, because we already used those 2 points. So it's 2 more points that make the second part of the space of the radical of radical 4. So I had to just like not do that now and wait until the processing is finished. So the only thing I could handle for now, until everything is finished processing, is the fact that in radical 1 there's 4 points. The 4 points make a square, being that the space in between the points are all even. Okay, the space in between the points, going from one point to the next consecutively, and not skipping points, because I have to stress that too, because you can't go inside the space and, you know, make a triangle or whatever. So I had to make that clear too. So that's 3. So I can actually say corners. So I could still say corners, okay? I could say corners in the fact that it's a square, and the fact that another thing I could make clear is that if you did put sides on it, or you did put a line through it, okay? What's he gonna say? If you did put a line through it, no, I was gonna say something, but I can't get that point. But it's something about if, but just forget about it now. So we have those 3 points, and the fact that it has points. That's what makes it a square. It has equal space. That if there was lines drawn, it would be equal also. And it's 4, okay, and the 4 points could be 4 corners also. We could call those points corners, okay? But breaking all that apart again, we just have 4 points in this radical. Now, in dance, this is everything that goes along with dance rock music. You cannot have 2 spaces, like I told you, the one I said, and say it's a square, because the radicals that we're talking about are actual squares, like the one I just busted up and broke down into points. There's a square. If you call radical 2 and you say it has a square, then you're messing up the whole fact of the square, because a square is a square because information was taken from something and put in to make the square. So that means there was a point in Dance Without Music, this knowledge for Dance Without Music, there was a point when there was no squares. And then this is the next hypothetical, or I'm just going to say this is the way it happens with the mindset in Dance Without Music. There was a point in time when there was no squares. And then and then the square was constructed from the instructions that I just told you about, which made the square. So that the information that builds the square was drawn or created or invented, okay, from the materials that was already existed. So that's a square. So you can't say a rectangle is a square, because in dance pop music, that's the definition of a square. The reason why I say that, because I notice in a lot of mathematics, they say the square, a radical 4, and they say a square, and it's a square, but then they try to make radical 2, which there's no radical 2. As far as I know, what I'm trying to tell you, there's no radical 2 in Dance Without Music. There's a radical 1, there's a radical 4, there's a radical 9, there's a radical 16, 25, 36, 49, I think is the next one. That's the squares. Other than that, there's no more squares. There's rectangles and there's other things. So 2 could be something else. As far as I know, it could be, a rectangle as far as I know. So you will not have a radical 2. And I was getting ready to say that, but sometimes you have to wait and dance about music to see how things work out. But if we didn't make rules like that, that means everything would be still, there would be no square. If you bust the rules and you say radical 2 is a square, then you can't say, you're messing up the rules for learning about a square, for learning about a radical 4. So anyway, so now we're in radical 1. Now we got to take the numbers down, because there's just points. How do we take the numbers down? Well, like I told you, in radical 4, and radical 9, as you notice, they get bigger. Not just that, but they have a pattern. Radical 4, it has 4 spaces, 4 even spaces. Radical 9 has a space in the center, okay? And from the center, they have spaces that surround it. So it's like I told you, it's a place, it's a location. It's a place with locations. And then let's jump to radical 5, okay? Just because radical 25. Radical 25 has an intersection, okay? It has a strict intersection that goes straight through it, and it goes an intersection that goes straight through it, like a cross. And then on each corner, they have what you call radical 4, radical 4, radical 4, radical 4. So it's a pattern. So as you can see, the radicals in Dance Without Music have their own qualities, okay? But now we're going to get rid of the numbers, okay? And we're going to no number land. It's going to be no numbers, okay? Now, what I wanted to say is, what makes a radical 4 and a radical 9, and what makes a radical 25 and a radical 36 and a radical 16 is the fact that they have equal spaces. And the more spaces they have, like for instance, 49, radical 49 has 49, it's made up of 49 radical 1 spaces, okay? 49. Now, what makes it that size? No, I'm not saying what makes it that size. It has the 49, but what I'm trying to say is the space in every radical 1, and the space in all the spaces that are divided in radical 4 and radical 9 and all the radicals, they're the only thing that determines the size of the space is radical 1. If radical 1 is very small, like you see on graph paper, then radical 4 is going to be very small. And then radical 9 is going to be very small. And then radical 16 is going to be very small. And radical 25 is going to be very small. As opposed to, if, let me see, if I took a piece, oh here, okay. Okay, so we talked about the graph paper, but say if I took this paper and I made it into a square, and I'm going to do it. Shit. So anyway, I'm going to try to do this, okay? Okay, here, I did it. It's already done. I just have to tear this. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we have the square, and I'm still thinking about this problem. I mean, not a problem, it's just something that I was thinking about, but it's not. I can concentrate on this. This is what I'm going to do now. I've disciplined myself, so now I'm just going to do this. Okay, so now we have this square. Now I got to figure out, since I was thinking about something else, how am I going to get back and remember what I was actually doing. Okay, so this is the square. Okay, so now this is the square. Okay, now we did the graph paper and it was smaller squares, but if I made this radical 1 in Dance Without Music, and I did this space, oh, can I actually do it? No. Okay, so I can do it that way too. I just measured it. I just didn't put the 4 things there. Okay, so now we have the 4. Here we go. Okay. So we have a radical 4 now. Okay. So each radical 1, which means radical 1 is like this. So when we have 4 to make a square, and it has 4 points, okay? So when we do it like this, everything is going to go built with this radical 1, okay? And I'm using numbers for everybody, so just for communication. So we have a radical 1, radical 1, radical 1. It has 4 corners, and it's all even, so that's radical 4. But if I want to make radical 16, it would be here, 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 and here. So the size depends upon the radical 1. And this radical 1 is this size. But in graph paper, the radical 1 is like this, okay? So, this is really deep. So the only thing that we can think of now, this is where the numbers fall, okay? It's the fact that if radical 1 determines the size of all other radicals when working on one thing, that means that, for the mere fact, that means if 1 is small, 1 could be like this, and then it can be like this, it could 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 be like that. Meaning that 1 can take up pretty much, I'm not going to say any, I'm going to say a lot of different sizes. So that means that radical 4 can be a lot of different sizes, right? If radical 1 is this big, radical 4 is this big. If radical 1 is this big, radical 4 is this big, okay? So, the only thing I can say is that instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, now we have to take into account that radical 1 could be any size, okay? As soon as I say radical 1 can be any size, all the numbers fall to the floor. So there you have it. So now we're in the land of no numbers. Now let's go to the next point. Okay, now, the only thing I want to do with the Michael Jackson dance is go over, sharpen these points, and now we can go a little bit further. I think that's it for... Oh, there's one thing. I do want to show you something about Hydrogen X. We're going to do something with Hydrogen X, so that you can understand that there is a Hydrogen X, okay? So I have to get this thing, make this, I want to make it so that I got to keep you on screen. Maybe, I'm just going to, I'm keeping on screen, okay? There, I just have to get this. I don't like to leave the screen. Okay, so this is going to be really quick because this is going to be an explanation of Hydrogen X. Now, I explained what Hydrogen X is, but I'm going to give you examples of Hydrogen X and how it works. So I'm going to put a ball here. I guess one ball here. Okay, let's put 2 balls here. I don't know if you can see the balls. Let me see. I don't know if you can see the balls, but maybe I'll put this a little bit further. You can see the balls. Let me see. You see these balls. I'm just seeing it. You should be able to see the balls. I mean, I got this thing here, but maybe if I, okay, let me move this. Then maybe you can see them. One ball here. Let's see. Still, I have to put it over here. Okay, now you see. Now I see the ball. I don't know how this thing works. Okay, then I'm gonna put a ball here, 2 balls here, and I'm gonna put 2 balls here. Okay. Now. Okay. Now, this is how I'm going to show you about Hydrogen X. Okay. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to take this, which has a Hydrogen X in now, and I'm going to put it over here. I'm taking it and I'm transferring it to this hand, to this hand. So the Hydrogen X went from this hand to this hand, okay? And now I'm going to put it in the bag, okay? And it performed a function. From the past, we called it an apparatus. You gotta look up, I don't know how you're gonna find it, but if you go through the course, we studied this, something like this, and it's called an apparatus. So now I'm gonna do the same thing to this one, and I'm using Hydrogen X. I'm picking this up, okay? And now I'm gonna take one of these, I got this in here. I'm doing a hold. The Hydrogen X is gonna leave here, okay? The Hydrogen X is here, it's gonna leave here, and now it's in the natural quadrant, moving. Okay, I'm in the natural quadrant, and I'm moving this. So now the hydrogen X is in there, and now I'm going to take this hand. So the hydrogen X went up through here, and I'm going to pick this up, and then I'm going to hold it. And that's something different. It's doing a hold, okay? A hold is like a grip, it's like a pressure, forming pressure around. So the power of pressure is holding this, and that's another study, okay? It's likened to like what's happening here with the weight on in this quadrant, in the natural quadrant, okay? So now I'm going to take these two, I'm going to pick up the bag with this hydrogen X, and I have this hydrogen X in here, because it's moving, you see that? Now I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to put the hydrogen X in here, and put it in there, okay? And now I'm just going to take this and pick up the rest of them with the hydrogen X. Pick up this one, pick up this one, and pick up this one. So one thing you learned about the hydrogen X is first, it carries intelligence and directions. Because I can say go over here, I can say go over here from my mind. It's the only, it has to carry intelligence. But sometimes it does, sometimes, well, it carries, this is the proper way to say it, it carries intelligence in Dance Without Music. It doesn't have to, different forms of intelligence, but in Dance Without Music, it definitely carries intelligence. So I'm going to take, and have it in here, but I got the hydrogen X in here. And I have the hydrogen X in here, I can't even move this unless I come over here, but I have it in here, the hydrogen X. Now I'm going to stop the I'm going to move the hydrogen X from here, it's like you see it moving, okay, and I move it up to here, okay, but this one can still move it, I want to, you know what I mean, but now it's in here and I wanted to put this in the bag. And that's a very quick example, or one description of the hydrogen X. Now we got one more thing to do, and then I can finish this. There's one more thing to do. That's going to be in the Michael Jackson dance. And we're going to do this U's again. But what I noticed in the U's is I didn't do it more like a dance, what it does, what this U's, what it can do, okay? Now we really know how to do it, but it can move forward. Wait. Okay, and it can move, not forward, or it can move forward, I guess that's called forward, but this is, I would say, coordinates. It can move through coordinates X, okay? So that what I would say mostly, and this one's kind of hard for me because, okay. So it goes like this, and it can go like this on this side. But in the Michael Jackson dance, it goes like this, it goes like this, and then it does a jump, okay, like that, and that's really going forward. Now the one thing that we have to see is he turns around, but to them, they just go like this, okay, but we don't do that in Dance Without Music. We have to find out exactly how we're going to turn it. So we just like this, he goes like this, and then they go like this, okay, which advances a little bit, okay, and they do it again, and I think they do it once or twice, I'm not sure, but it goes one, and that's in advance. So the weight is, I'm not going to say the weight, I'm going to say we're in a natural quadrant, but we want to switch to the other quadrant in the same position. So how would we do that? The only thing I can think of to do it the best way is, we have to move the hydrogen X like we always talked about. So if we move the hydrogen X, and then we could do a use, and then we could do that, okay? So let's go back. So we did this, we did the step, and then the use. Then we want to do the same thing on the other side. The only thing we do, we have the hydrogen X here. We move the hydrogen X to where we want it to be, like we know, okay, like where we want it. And then we do a use. So a use, and then we can go back, okay? And then we can rest. So we did a use, which brings it back on the natural quadrant. So, okay, so we transfer. So what it seems like is that we transfer uses. Like this isn't a use, okay? And we go like that, we use, and then we want to transfer uses. So that means that this would have to go like this. We would go like this and transfer the use. So that's as far as we got right now. The Thriller dance, you don't really have to worry about it. You have to keep doing it, but it has to be perfected. And we do it little by little, and it falls into place. And that's more like, it's a very important part of the dance without music, because it makes it very interesting for one thing. And it's a beautiful dance because the different things that they do in a dance help me to explain a lot of things about dance without music. So that's it for today. And I hope that, I know it was a lot of information, and I'm looking forward to the next class, okay? And I'm sorry because I was thinking about something, because something is happening, it's not really, it's just decisions that I have to make. And I kept, wandering my mind there. And so, but nothing's wrong, everything is just fine. So I see you all, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this Dance Without Music. We went over the breaking down the radicals in No Number Land, and we did a little bit with the hydrogen X, and we did a little bit of the Michael Jackson dance. We did more. We advanced just a little because we did a switch. So thank you very much. See you next time.